610 presents Payne and Pendergast.
Laremy Tunsil's got new friends. He met with the media in Washington yesterday. I don't think he was in. He went to the building and visited, but the press conference he did yesterday looked like it was on a Zoom where he was sitting on his front porch. So I don't know the logistics of his travel, but he's a Washington Commander now, and he did a press conference yesterday, and he said no hard feelings in leaving Houston.
In this position, so what I learned, don't take anything personal. It's just strictly just a business. And I actually, before I left the building, I talked to those guys, D'Amico and Nick, and pretty much they're just trying to keep the young guys together. As simple as that. When I was a rookie, and I would talk to my OG, who was Brandon Albert and Vermont Bushrod and Mike Pouncey. They told me it's a young man's game. And, I've seen it for myself. They drafted some young guys and they hit on every draft pick. They're trying to keep those guys together. So I fully understand. Like, they just paid Stingley today. Like, they just gave that boy that bag. So I truly understand. Like, it's no hard feelings. Like, at the end of the day, it's a business. You know what I mean? I don't take anything personal. There's no hard feelings against the Houston Texans. I thank them for just putting me in this position, and I thank them for everything they did for me and my family and changing my life. So I get it, man. When I was with Miami, I didn't get the courtesy call from Miami. I kind of woke up out my nap and got traded. So at least this time was a little bit different.
Okay, so he's talking about when Bill O'Brien traded for him. He probably woke up and found out on Twitter or got some text messages or something like that.
Well, remember when he got traded from Miami, he had a pretty funny comment about it. When he found out he'd been traded for 2 first-round picks, he said, I would have traded me too.
Yeah.
So it was easier probably not to take it personally that time around. And everything he said is true and accurate. And I think that's where there was kind of an emotional upheaval in a good way, or it just felt like an emotional cleansing in a lot of ways, because so many people were so tired of Laremy Tunsil's consistent false starts and is all starting for the entire duration of time he was here. He was a league leader almost every single year. But that also, it does just financially make sense that when you pay guys like Derek Stingley, when you're probably going to pay guys like Will Anderson, when the Texans are in the situation they're in right now, 2 things can be true. One, yes, they're going to have to make some tough decisions on veterans and clear some space. But you do get to choose which expensive veterans you do that with. Mm-hmm. And there's some guy, an offensive tackle, who's if you're as genuinely good as some people want to talk about Laremy Tunsil, which is like a Trent Williams type, you don't let those guys go. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit to both sides of the issue here with Laremy Tunsil, both the fact that he wasn't a truly great all-around offensive tackle, he was a pass protection specialist, but then also, you cleared almost $20 million off the cap this year. You clear way more than that next year. And it does open up things to be able to give guys these future contracts.
Yeah, that was clearly the story that was told to him by D'Amico and Nick. That's very evident, is that when he, if he wanted a reason as to why, the reason, because I agree with you. As he was laying that out, I'm going, yeah, okay, dude, as he's laying that out and him being told that's the reason why, they got some young guys they want to take care of. I know this. I was one of those young guys at one time when I was in Miami. I talked to Brandon Albert. He was my OG. I'm the OG now, blah, blah, blah. I was thinking the same thing you were. I'm like, okay, the toxic nature of the offensive line room that we read about with Albert Breer. It's appearing to us now that this is what Laremy was told. It's like, no, it's probably both. It's probably maybe toxic is overstating it a little bit, but it's probably both.
The issue I had with that Albert Breer statement was that Albert Breer talked about the O-line room having a near-toxic atmosphere, but that doesn't really fill in any details as far as whether it was Laremy Tunsil's fault, whether it was Chris Strausser's fault or Bobby Slowick's fault. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really feel comfortable using that as some kind of ammunition against Laremy Tunsil. Mm-hmm. There's lots of reasons a room can be toxic, and it doesn't like Breer didn't specifically point out Tunsil necessarily. So I don't know exactly what all that was about, and I feel like it's a little irresponsible to act like it. But I am not, as I was talking about Trent Williams, the irony is not lost on me that Trent Williams forced his way out of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
When you talk about not letting go of a guy who's as good as Trent Williams sat out an entire season because he flat out hated the Commanders when they were owned by Dan Snyder. It's obviously a different environment there now with the new ownership.
Yep. Laremy talked about the penalties. He was asked about the penalties, as he should be with his new team. That is the one glaring thing, at least on the stat sheet, that sticks out about Laremy Tunsil. He said he wants to fix that.
I kind of just like challenging myself to find new challenges in my game to get better at. So every year I try to find something like, I can do this better, or I want to do this better, or I want to be known for this, or, so I kind of just put that chip on my shoulder by myself. It's really just me versus me at the end of the day. If the 19 penalties I had last season was unacceptable. So that's something I want to address for sure, getting that number down or even having none. I want to keep growing as a player, honestly, as a pass blocker, a run blocker. It doesn't matter. I'm always trying to improve in each of those fields.
The always part, I guess I would have an issue with, because he never really showed all that much interest in being a good run blocker, really, until this last year. I think he made some improvements by about midway through the season. He looked like, oh, here we go. The penalties he's had in his entire career to start working on that. He's been amongst the worst. And the part that's always bothered me about Laremy Tunsil being so good in pass protection as he is that he does game the system a little bit in having all those false starts and pre-snap alignment penalties. The other genuinely great pass protectors don't get that many. Go back to Trent Williams. Trent Williams, on average, over the last 5 years, has somewhere between 0 to 2 pre-snap penalties per year.
Yeah.
It took me going back through Trent Williams for 5 years for him to have the same number. In the last 5 seasons, Trent Williams had the same number of pre-snap penalties as Laremy Tunsil had this season. So, Tunsil gets away with, hey, no big deal if I turn a 3rd and 6 into 3rd and 11 because it doesn't show up on my pass protection stats. I don't get marked against it in pass protection. But it's cheating the system a little bit in a very selfish way. And that's what gets annoying to people. It's that the manner in which he would false start possible, and he's just continually stepping over the line and hurting his team. That's pure unadulterated selfishness, and there's no other excuse around it. That's the part that gets really, really old with fans.
Well, and it was at a number that couldn't be ignored this year. There was, if you get 4 or 5 instead of Trent Williams getting 2, you can brush that under the rug when you get traded to a new team. When you have, I think it was 12 procedure penalties. Is the number 19 total penalties? Because that's the number he just gave out.
Yeah, it was 12 false starts. Yeah. I believe it was 2 or 3 illegal formations, lining up too deep.
There was the illegal man downfield on that Nico screen that would have been a touchdown. I know that. Yeah,
that one I actually, that's where it kind of turned, where I started trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, because he looked genuinely upset at himself for that. It was the first time I remember Laremy Tunsil looking like he was genuinely upset that he had screwed over the entire team.
Look like you care. That's the bar.
Instead of blaming others. Yeah. Yes, it was a big moment of progress for him, because he's always working on something.
Yeah. One more from Laremy Tunsil says he's very excited to block for Jaden Daniels.
I can tell you this, I damn sure can't wait to block for Jaden Daniels. He's a baller, and it's just from seeing this on TV and watching film, and it seemed like he's a better dude too. And just hearing that from a lot of people just around the locker room, and his teammates from LSU, I know a couple of those guys. Just a good person, a baller, so I can't wait. It'll make my job hella easy.
Little disappointed he didn't call
him
a dog.
He's not a dog.
He's not a dog. Yeah, baller. He's a baller, not a dog.
You know who's a dog?
Who?
You know who isn't? Jaden Daniels.
Just a baller. He's not a dog, man. Not a dog.
Davis Mills don't need no virtual reality goggles.
Maybe
Davis just goes out there and guns it.
That's right, man. Maybe if he's around Laremy enough, he'll become a dog. You get in Laramy's orbit right there. In his space.
That's the X factor.
Yeah, he'll draw some dog-like qualities from Laremy Tunsil.
I had a horrible dream about Laremy Tunsil a couple nights ago, and I think it was because I had. There's a combination.
That feels redundant, by the way. I had horrible, as opposed to the amazing dreams about Laremy Tunsil.
Well, no, I feel guilty about it, but I know I woke up and I was kind of freaked out because I had a dream that Washington was playing in Philadelphia, and Tunsil was nowhere to be seen. and it's because he just decided not to play that day. Really? So everybody in the Washington locker room was freaking out, trying to figure out what the hell's going on with Laremy. What the hell's going on with Laremy? So this was playing out like a movie, and I jump cut to the scene where Laremy is driving over a bridge in Philadelphia. They have many bridges there, away from the stadium, and he had some staffer with him who was there with him against his will. And Laremy said they were in a convertible. And at one point, Laremy said, "Watch this maneuver." He actually said that.
This is all happening in your dream.
Yes. And he goes and he jerks the wheel to the side like he was 180 turnaround or something. But he hits the embankment, and they go over the edge. Jeez. And as they're going over the edge, they have their hands up. They have their hands up like they're going down a roller coaster. And then scene cut. It goes to black. And I presume that they perished in this movie. Okay. But I woke up and I was like, what the hell am I wishing on people? And then I remembered I had put a GIF of Thelma and Louise in a video I did on my YouTube a couple days before that.
Wow.
So I basically put Laremy Tunsil and some staffer into a Thelma and Louise type situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, if it's that simple to just weave the themes of certain movies into your dreams, I'm just going to start putting GIFs up of some much more pleasant stuff than that. If it's just going to seep its way into my brain. Here's my question. As you were laying that out, let me ask you this. Were you like a third person watching this whole car scene go on, or were you in the back seat?
It was like I was watching a movie, I was third person, and I was watching it as if it was a movie or a news report or something. Because then later they showed still frame footage caught from traffic cameras.
Yeah,
and in it, this is a symbolic part that I think is related to the false starts. In it, Laremy, as they were plummeting to their death in this convertible, had this huge smile on his face, like he was having the time of his life. Whereas the staffer was petrified and like clutching the door. Only Laremy had his hands up, and it was like this grainy black and white photo, but like it was his birthday. But the staffer was going down into his watery death.
So you didn't get to see exactly what led to the staffer being in the car. You just know from your dream that the staffer was in there against his or her will.
I vaguely remember, some kind of drama or something where Laremy, he had forgotten something at home or something. Maybe it was his bright green glove, or bright red gloves.
Yeah.
He wanted to go get his bright red gloves at home, so he had some pizzazz on camera.
And decided to snag a random staffer to go with him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We should point that out. Okay, the vast majority of his penalties were pre-snap penalties. Yeah. He did have a couple of holds, and one of those holds was in the game where he was wearing the bright red gloves against the opponent's white jersey.
Right.
That make it extra easy to see that whether or not an offensive lineman is holding or not.
He'll probably go with like bright gold gloves with the Commanders, I would think. Burgundy?
He started wearing, to his credit, again, when he started caring about run blocking this year, he was wearing white gloves the rest of the year, white or black gloves the rest of the year.
I got to tell you, it was a very deja vu feeling watching these clips. I didn't watch the whole press conference. I just went and found the clips, the 2 or 3 that everybody was, kind of talking about afterwards. And it did remind me that at various times throughout Laremy Tunsil's career as a Texan, I was not happy with Laremy Tunsil for whatever reason. I acknowledge he's a good player and all that, but Texan fans can relate to this. But it seems like he would do a press conference, and I would start to feel good about him again every time. Like, I liked him in press conference. And this one yesterday, I'm like, I got to like Laremy Tunsil.
It's his voice.
Yeah.
He's got a very reassuring voice.
Yeah.
I remember that being my first impression when he met with the Houston media. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, this guy could do voiceovers or something. He could definitely speak for an insurance company. I would buy that insurance.
Yes.
Knowing that they're going to screw me eventually, but at the very least, Laremy Tunsil would make me feel good about it up front.
Soothing, Barry White voice. Yes, for sure. I wonder how CJ's feeling about it. I wonder how CJ is feeling watching clips of Laremy Tunsil blocking for his new friend Jaden Daniels.
I wonder how CJ's feeling about all of this.
Yeah.
He hasn't. Has there been an emoji tweeted out or anything like that?
That's not his game. He's not.
Right. Well, but I wonder. He probably wanted to express something publicly. This is me just guessing.
Yeah.
If I were CJ Stroud, if I put myself, hold on a second, let me do a little empathy exercise. All right, CJ Stroud tries to do right by his teammates, and he personally loves those guys, all that. He wants to maybe publicly express his feelings about Laremy Tunsil individually, but he also knows that anything he does is going to be hyper scrutinized.
Yes.
And that it's a dicey position to be in. So I'm guessing that CJ called or texted Laremy and maybe had a conversation with him, but he's withheld any kind of public statement just because you know how those things. There's almost nothing he can say that won't be interpreted as like, oh,
well,
see, CJ's pissed.
Especially the more you leave open to interpretation. Like if it's an emoji, it's the wild, wild west, you know?
Remember Stephon Diggs when he got up, he handled it almost perfectly, and yet people found ways to act like he was trying to throw shade at the Bills, as he was flat out saying, I love those people, I love Josh Allen, people found a way to twist that into shade at the Bills.
Now, I feel like 100% something you just said happened, which was I feel like they've definitely communicated, Laremy and CJ, since the trade, 100%. 100%.
Unless CJ was the one who wielded the knife.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I got a whole new feeling about CJ.
You know what? By the way, that's something I learned late in life. When somebody gets fired, if you don't reach out to them, oftentimes they think that you were the person who was behind doing them in.
That's why I reach out to everybody who gets fired.
I never really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, so now, so definitely the other life lesson there is, chief life lesson, for one, it's a nice thing to do is to reach out to somebody, even if you weren't that close to them. But B, if you are the person that did them in, be sure you reach out to them.
Oh, yeah, good subterfuge.
You got to be Machiavellian here. Play the game. If you're going to play the game, go all the way.
Hell yeah.